Ascharyavat pashyati kashchidenam. Ascharyavat bhatitate vachanya. Ascharyavat bhatati tatai vachavnya. Ascharyavat anam anya shroniti. Ascharyavat anam anya shroniti. Shutva api enam vedana che avaskaschit. Shutva api enam vedana che vaschit. One looks upon him as a marvel, another likewise speaks of him as a marvel, another hears of him as a marvel, and even after hearing, no one whatsoever has known him. People see the soul as a marvel because it can't be seen, but it passes through many bodies, so people think that the soul is a marvel. The Vedas say, Prajapatish charite garve anta jaya mahano bauda vidayate, meaning it passes through the body and gets reborn several times. What could the soul be like? The soul, Lord describes 4 types of people here. Those who can see the soul, those who talk about the soul, those who have heard about the soul, and those who even hearing about the soul can't understand it. The soul is really a marvel. Why do people not think about the soul? If you look at it logically, the first question that people have in their minds is, what is the soul? Or who am I? Because you are the soul. But very few people can see the soul. Very few people can talk about the soul even, because it's difficult to do so. You need to experience the soul, and I've shown you the way through meditation and chanting mantra. But many people have experienced the soul, but even then there's very few people that can describe it, because it requires that additional qualification to describe their experience. So the spiritual knowledge is more analogical than logical. This is the difficulty in trying to define the soul. If it was logical, then you can explain it in numerical steps, but it's analogical, it's illogical, and therefore you'd have to use examples. And even those examples can be negative examples, and that's why in the Vedas and Upanishads they use neti, meaning the soul's not this, it's not that. The soul's illogical, and that's why it's difficult to understand. And people nowadays hardly ask that question, who am I? And they're very less inclined to find out about themselves. Some people, those who can see the soul, this is a very, very advanced stage, that's the final stage. Those who can see the soul, even then, they don't know the soul. The person should ask from the beginning, who am I? Because he has to have that wish to know the soul. These people don't even think about it. The reason why people don't think about it today is because, what's the reason? It's nobody's necessity. If Guruji hasn't forgotten, there's Bertrand Russell. Who's heard of Bertrand Russell? Major philosopher of the last century. He was an atheist. He went to a town, and there was a priest in the church asked Russell that every Sunday I preach these sermons to people, I tell them nice stories from the Bible, I've been doing this for the last 30 years, but it hasn't led to change in anyone. I thought that it would all be well in this town after I preach my sermons, and this town there'll be no robberies, there'll be no bad deeds, and everyone will be living in peace like Christ's kingdom of God. In fact, there's now more robberies than there were 30 years ago, and people have less peace than they have 30 years ago. Why is this? I could imagine this being if people didn't come to the sermons, but everyone's coming to the sermons and listening, but it hasn't made that difference. Why is this? Bertrand Russell gave him a very direct answer. You're preaching things that nobody needs. They come to your sermons, but they come for different reasons, but they don't need those sermons. Don't think that they need to apply what you're telling them in their lives. It's like a shopkeeper opening a shop with goods that nobody wants. How can that shop keep running? They're selling the completely wrong things. That's why when you don't teach people what they need, it's completely different from what they apply to their lives. And that's what Russell pointed out. And it reminds Guruji of an event when a person was giving a discourse it was about 60 years ago. And he was giving a discourse. This elderly person, age 80, always used to come and listen attentively to the discourses. He came to about 10 in a row. Those who give discourses always become familiar to who is in the audience. So So they were talking, and the saint asked him, you're coming along, why don't you bring your son along? Because after this, his life will be fruitful, your son will get peace. The elderly man has the benefits from the discourses, but now his son will get the benefits as well. Not only that, after hearing the discourse, the son can put whatever he has heard into practice. The elderly man says that it's all correct, but his son would have no business coming there, because he said his mind is unripe. The Seekers said that this is the exact type of person that you have to bring to the discourse, because it's only the person who comes to discourses whose mind is unripe. His mind can be made ripe, and so he can be taught how to change his life. The elderly man says it's good that he's like that because he's good at his job, and if my son changes, it will be detrimental to me. The son was unchangeable. When people ask Guruji why people don't change when people come to discourses, he always tells them because they've made up their minds before they came that they don't want to change when they come to the discourses. If a person comes with the attitude that he wants to change, then of course he can be changed. You can't change a person unless he wishes to change himself. If a person decides that he even wishes to change 1%, then you can change that 1%, 2%, 5%, all the way to 100%. But if a person decides that he doesn't want to change even 1%, then he can't do anything. The person is unchangeable. So in the same way, as Krishna says in this verse, the soul is unchangeable. If you look at the wings of a butterfly, if you look at anything in nature, you can imagine that God has made it unchangeable. But if you touch it one bit, then it will fall off straight away, and everything will fall off. Like people draw portraits of something at one time, like the sun. In a portrait, it looks like it's the same, but the sun always changes. It always rises, the sun always sets. But the soul is unchangeable. That's the difference. A painter draws that painting and he signs at the bottom saying that artist, 1963. But the difference is when God, the Lord, creates something, he never signs anything. For example, 1963 God, or 1984 God. He's created such a big world. If you look at human anatomy, you'll see that God has designed it in such great detail that even the most intelligent person could not design anything like this. And yet God never puts the signature at the bottom. Guruji always says that atheism is not a sign of intelligence, but a sign of intellectual bankruptcy. So even if we think a little and ask, how can all of this just come to being just like that? If you look at human bodies, none of us are similar. We all have 2 eyes, 1 nose, 2 ears, 1 mouth, 1 chin, 1 neck, 1 chest, 1 waist, 2 arms, 2 legs. This is all there. Not only that, but we have all of this. Despite that, not a single person in the world is identical with someone else. Even if you like have the face isn't identical. But if you look at the fingers, the 8 thumbs, criminologists do fingerprints. Criminologists have said not a single person in the world has the same fingerprints as another person. Not only that, criminologists say this, single person in history, according to the records, has had the same fingerprints. Each and every person is so different. If you try to look at fingerprints, just get out a paper and a pen and try to draw these different fingerprints. You can draw 50, you can draw 60, you can 70, but you just run out. How many can you make that are just all different in such a small area that are so different from each other? Only that, the entire history of humankind, not a single person has the same fingerprints as someone else. So just look at the face and see how well it's been designed. You've got the eyes at the top, you've got the nose, you've got the mouth, you've got the hands and the feet. It's all designed so you can eat perfectly. Let's say when you want to get some food, you get your hands, you pick up the food, it brings it, you can see the food with your eyes, you draw it to your mouth, you smell it, before it goes into your mouth, you can smell it, it goes into your mouth. That's exactly everything has been put into a perfect place, designed so you can eat. But what if you couldn't smell the food before you ate it? What if God has put the nose at the back of our heads? How difficult would we be? We would have to see the food with our eyes, you have to take the food to the back of our heads, smell it, and then put it into our mouths. Everything's been put into one line, it's all perfect. This is engineering, and that's an art. How much thought must have gone into this? If you want to think about God, just imagine how perfectly our body is designed. Just start thinking about this. Imagine if an alien comes onto this planet, he sees a laptop, there's a laptop there, he sees one laptop, if there's only one laptop there, alien can say, hands down, it's a biochemical reaction, it came to being. But if you see millions and millions of laptops, you can't say, designed in the exact same way, you can't say that this is biological chemical reaction. Why not for human beings as well then? Each and every human being is designed in similar, all with different fingerprints, different faces. Even twins, the mother knows that twins are not fully identical, there's differences.
How does Bhagavad Gita explain evolution? So you talk about designing a human being, but then it's not sort of an immediate design.
It's going to come up in the next class. In the next class, we're going to, indirectly, we're going to explain the Varna system, not the caste system, Varna system. We're going to go into detail into history, how evolution happened, and there's lots of different things in evolution, how human beings developed. And evolution is a gradually changing process. You always adapt to certain circumstances, like human beings have never been used to sitting on a chair. It's been designed in a certain way, but we'll go into that detail in the next class. Each place, this whole Gita, it's according to the mindset of a human being, how human beings think, what questions come up in their minds, and it comes up at a certain time, but we're going to go into that in detail in the next class. Okay, that evolution. So, even after hearing about it, one can't understand the soul, one can't speak about it. The soul doesn't appear. There's a great thinker called Vijayastin. He says that which cannot be said must not be said. There's many things that we can't talk about. One should not talk about it because there's always be something missing in what you talk about. Talk sounds good, but if you have all these great personalities like religious figures, prophets that have came into the world like Ram, Krishna, Buddha, Mahavir, and you've seen that they came into the world when the world lacked great ideas. And the things that the Buddha preached, the things that Krishna preached, is telling Arjun, they come with a full understanding that the soul cannot be described in words. But they're still using words to describe it, even though words are limited. If they had heard what Vijayastin had said, then it would have been held back. But it said in the Dushya Upanishad that Yato Vacharon Navatam Apri Na Vanasasa, meaning we know that one cannot speak about it, but we're still doing so because the methods of explaining it can communicate a lot. There's a lot of space between those two lines, and that tells a lot, because when you leave a space between two words, that space tells a lot. That's exactly what's happening here. Who knows that if we can't explain, we can't explain the soul, but we're using words to describe the world. But the soul is something that you can't really describe through words. You have to read between the lines, and that's through those words, between those words, someone will get inspired to make that effort to go down that right route, to do this meditation, to do penances, upasana, and reach the ultimate goal, which is the soul. So that's verse 29, going to verse 30.